I first discovered my wife's betrayal on a Wednesday afternoon, completely by accident. It was one of those ordinary days, the kind where you expect nothing remarkable. I had been sitting alone at a small bistro downtown, catching up on emails after a client meeting got canceled at the last minute. The outdoor seating area was bustling, the kind of place where the sounds of clinking glasses and muffled laughter blend into a comfortable urban hum. I was mid-bite into a sandwich when I heard it, a laugh, familiar yet sharper than I remembered. I looked up and there she was, my wife Vanessa, sliding into a seat just 2 tables away. Her friend Melissa already leaning in with that conspiratorial posture that never bodes well. I hadn't planned to eavesdrop, but the potted plant between us acted as a natural cover, and something in my gut told me to stay quiet. So James still has no idea? Melissa asked, her voice dipping low, leaning closer over her glass. Vanessa's response came with a dismissive chuckle. God, no. He's completely clueless, she replied, swirling her wine like the scene was straight out of soap opera. I felt a strange, slow chill spread through my chest. I put my fork down, suddenly hyper-aware of every word that followed. I've been cheating since our 3rd date, Vanessa continued, her tone disturbingly casual. Marriage just made it more exciting. There's something about wearing his ring while I'm with someone else that adds an extra thrill. Melissa gasped, her voice dropping to a nervous whisper. Wait, how many guys are we talking about? Vanessa took a sip, considering. Maybe 12 over the years. Currently, just 3. Eric's my Tuesday guy when James has his late meetings. Chris is for when James is traveling. And Michael, well, Michael is special. He's more than just sex. The words hit like cold, sharp splinters, each detail driving deeper. She went on outlining a system she perfected over the years. Separate email accounts, a second phone, a hidden credit card I never even knew existed. James makes it easy, she added with a wry smile. He's so trusting, so predictable. Always home when he says he'll be. Always tells me his schedule. I know exactly where he is at all times. Melissa's eyes widened. Aren't you afraid he'll find out? Vanessa shrugged. Sometimes I almost want him to, but he won't. Even if he did, what would he really do? The house is in both our names. My name's on his accounts. He'd have to pay alimony. He's too practical to blow everything up. They eventually moved on to lighter topics, gossiping about mutual friends and laughing as if nothing of consequence had just been said. I sat frozen, my sandwich forgotten, my world tilted on its axis. When I finally stood up to leave, it was with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. There was no anger, no immediate urge for confrontation, just a cold, calculated resolve. I walked out of the bistro and headed straight to my car, my mind already piecing together the framework of an escape. I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I pulled into a quiet park a few blocks away and sat there for nearly an hour, letting the initial shock crystallize into a hardened, determined calm. The first call I made was to my lawyer, Graham, an old college friend who had handled all my business contracts over the years. I kept my voice steady, explaining the situation in as few words as possible. He listened without interrupting, then advised me to gather evidence and protect my assets before making any moves. I agreed, knowing he was right. That night, I went home and played the role of the loving, unsuspecting husband. I asked about her day, listened to her tell me about the conference she'd be attending that weekend, even had dinner with her. We sat side by side on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder, her ring catching the light as she scrolled through her phone. I felt like a stranger in my own life, watching a performance I'd unknowingly been cast in. The next morning, as soon as she left for her so-called conference, I sprang into action. I started by securing my finances, moving my most recent paycheck from our joint account to my personal one, which she had no visibility into. I then called my friend who owned a luxury car dealership. The Audi I had bought Vanessa for her 30th birthday, a gift that now felt like a punchline, needed to go. I explained the situation briefly, and he agreed to handle the sale, no questions asked. I spent the rest of the day methodically clearing out my life. I removed her as an authorized user on my primary credit cards, canceled our joint gym membership, and set up a new phone number. I rented a small storage unit for my most cherished possessions, my grandfather's watch, the vintage motorcycle I had rebuilt with my father, and the photo albums Vanessa had never bothered to look through. I packed these carefully, making sure to leave no obvious gaps in our shared spaces. By the time Graham had the preliminary divorce papers ready that evening, I had already found a new apartment, signed a 6-month lease, and arranged for my mail to be forwarded. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen table with a short, pointed note. I know everything. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Vanessa came home a day early. I watched through my home security cameras. The ones she never bothered to learn had remote access. I saw her enter the house, her confident stride slowing as she noticed the missing items, her confusion turned to panic when she found the papers on the table. She reached for her phone, the calls coming in rapid succession as I watched from my new, sparsely furnished apartment across town. I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say. In the weeks since, the messages have ranged from desperate apologies to seething anger, her tone shifting as quickly as her situation crumbles. I keep them all, a digital record of the woman I once thought I knew. I've moved on, finding a strange, unexpected peace in the quiet of my new life. I'm still working through the aftermath, but one thing is certain, I'm never looking back. After I filed for divorce, Vanessa quickly pivoted to damage control, trying every tactic she could think of to regain control of the narrative. She started by contacting mutual friends, spreading rumors about my mental state, framing my silence as a breakdown rather than the calm, calculated exit it truly was. When that didn't gain traction, she escalated further, showing up at my parents' house demanding my new address. They refused, thankfully. Her desperation hit a peak when she filed a missing person report, which was swiftly dismissed after I spoke with the officers, confirming my whereabouts and intentions. As the weeks dragged on, her strategy shifted. The angry voicemails full of accusations gave way to tearful pleas, each one more desperate than the last. She promised she'd do anything for another chance, weaving apologies and self-pity into every message. When I still didn't respond, she switched back to threats, claiming I had stolen irreplaceable family heirlooms, items I either had clear proof of ownership for or knew had never existed in the first place. Through it all, I maintained absolute silence, letting my lawyer, Graham, handle every bit of communication. He presented the overwhelming evidence of her infidelity whenever necessary. Photos from security cameras, the contents of her second phone she'd accidentally left behind, and transaction logs that painted a damning picture. Her double life was exposed in stark detail, making her attempt to gain leverage laughable in hindsight. It's been 6 weeks now. The divorce is moving along smoothly, thanks to the airtight prenuptial agreement she signed without a second thought. The house will be sold, and the assets divided according to the prenups formula. Less than she expected, but more than she deserves. She still calls my old number every night between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Her voicemail's a chaotic blend of rage, regret, and begging. I don't listen to them anymore. I just forward the timestamps to Graham for documentation. Last week, I ran into Melissa, one of her close friends, at a coffee shop. She looked uncomfortable, but approached me anyway. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice strained. "If I'd known you were there that day." I met her gaze unimpressed. "You would have what?" I asked. "Warned her? Helped her keep the lie going?" She hesitated, then admitted, "I don't know, but for what it's worth, she's a mess. She's lost weight, called in sick repeatedly. Her job is on the line." I just nodded, not out of sympathy, but acknowledgement. Actions have consequences. As I turned to leave, she asked one last question. "Do you ever think about giving her another chance?" The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Would I trust someone who had lied to me for 6 years, who had risked my health with multiple partners, who had turned our marriage into a convenient cover for her deceit? I looked back at Melissa and simply said, "Would you?" Now, 3 months later, the divorce has been finalized. It moved faster than expected thanks to the mountain of evidence and the ironclad prenup. At the final hearing, Vanessa looked like a ghost of her former self, subdued, a shadow of the confident, manipulative woman I once knew. She didn't contest anything, likely advised by her lawyer that pushing back would only cost her more in the long run. The house sold quickly in a competitive market. After paying off the mortgage, the remaining equity was split 70-30 in my favor, a direct result of the down payment coming from my premarital funds. Vanessa briefly tried to argue that her contributions to the marriage warranted a bigger share, but the evidence of her systematic infidelity made that argument a non-starter. Professionally, I've thrived. I've closed 2 of the biggest deals of my career, earning a promotion that came with a corner office and a significant pay bump. Ironic, perhaps, that the collapse of my personal life coincided with my best professional run, but I'll take the win. As for Vanessa, she was terminated from her pharmaceutical sales job, according to mutual contacts. She's moved back to her hometown, living with her parents and working retail, a far cry from the glamorous life she'd grown accustomed to with my financial support. Her nightly calls finally stopped about a month ago. The last voicemail was different from the others. No screaming, no bargaining, just a quiet, defeated message. I understand now why you did it this way. I wouldn't have listened otherwise. I'm sorry. It meant little to me. 6 years of lies can't be wiped away with a moment of clarity. I've started to rebuild, bought a smaller house in a different neighborhood, one with potential, a project to focus on, reconnected with friends I lost touch with over the years, even started dating casually, though I'm upfront about my trust issues. Some have criticized my approach, calling it too calculated, saying I should have confronted her directly. To them, I ask, what would that have accomplished? Given her a chance to twist the story, allowed her time to hide assets or fabricate counterclaims. No, the clean break wasn't just emotionally necessary, it was strategically sound. Looking back, I see the red flags I ignored for years, the late nights, unexplained expenses, sudden emotional distance followed by intense affection, all the classic signs of betrayal. I see now that I simply wasn't ready to confront the truth, but I am now, and that makes all the difference. For anyone in a similar situation, protect yourself first. Emotions can be processed later, once you're safe from further manipulation. And remember, the person capable of lying to your face for years isn't the person you thought you married. Act accordingly.